There's not a single person in my department who would go to your wedding. A few hours before the wedding, my beloved wife-to-be and I were getting ready to head to the venue. That's when I got a call on my cell phone from my boss. The first of those calls was this insult. Starting today, all of my subordinates are going on a hot spring trip to Ueda, so none of them will be attending your wedding. Every drop of blood ran away from my body in an instant. The image of my wife's face, who had smiled at me and said, "This will be the best day of our lives," flashed through my mind. I felt a deep pain in my heart that I had to tell her this. And so, suppressing the anger that was boiling my blood, I contacted someone. "I'm sorry to bother you while you're busy. In fact, there's something I want to tell her urgently that she doesn't know yet. That this single phone call will be the gong that will lead to the department manager's own downfall. My name is Dai Iwata, 31 years old. I work as the most senior section manager at JNext Consulting, a major consulting firm. My job is to analyze the management issues of our client companies and present solutions to them. It's a job with a lot of responsibility that can affect the future of the company, but it's also a rewarding job. However, there was a man at work who I often had conflicting opinions with. It was Director Nakatani Yuko, who is also my immediate superior and the head of the crisis management department that I report to. Iwata, have you been dealing directly with clients again without permission? How many times do I have to tell you to go through me? I'm sorry, but the other party had an urgent request for me, and since the director wasn't here yesterday, I had no choice but to do it. In this department, my judgment is everything. Don't be so considerate. You can just make the client wait. He constantly interferes in my work and tries to impose his unreasonable opinions on me. He seems to be afraid that I will achieve results and be evaluated, so he always gets in the way. He's a petty man who fears that his position will be threatened by younger employees. That was his true nature. And a decisive incident occurred a year ago that transformed the director's rivalry with me into a murderous desire. A major client, Venus Cosmetics, was caught in a huge scandal due to a false rumor about a foreign object being found in their products. Nakatani, who was in charge of the emergency response meeting, was red in the face and yelling. "What's going on? The person in charge of the candidate. Why haven't you been able to cancel it yet? It's hard to say, but the plan the manager proposed the other day had no effect at all. What, are you trying to blame me? Don't mess with me. It's because you guys weren't doing your best that this happened." The whole car was in complete panic. This won't work. So I quietly raised my hand. "Manager, is that okay? I have a proposal." "Oh, what did you say? What do you know?" While identifying the spread of the rumor, make an official apology on social media at the same time. You should immediately announce that you will accept an investigation by a third party. Showing sincerity and transparency is the only way to resolve the current situation. The moment I said that, Nakatani pounded his fist on the table. "Shut up. In this situation, if I bow my head first, I'll embarrass the client. How will you take responsibility if the project fails because of a young guy like you? But if things continue like this, it will really be too late. I'm telling you not to show off. Don't talk back to my methods. All you have to do is shut up and follow my instructions. It's no use. If we leave it to this guy, the client and I will sink." I ran out of the conference room. My destination was the president's office at JNext Consulting. I decided to negotiate with President Fukuda Toyosuke. Hey, A young guy suddenly going straight to the president's office to negotiate directly with a woman is a good idea. But I like your idea. Just do your best. Fortunately, the president accepted my proposal and gave me permission to put it into action right away. As a result, my strategy was put to rest, and the incident miraculously subsided in just a few days. On the contrary, my sincere response was highly praised, and the brand image improved even more than before. A few days later, a phone rang out in the office. It was actually a message from the client's president, Shuga, to me. Hello. Is that Iwata? It's Kano from Venus Cosmetics. Well, thank you so much for this matter. If it weren't for you, our company would be in a terrible state right now. I was just doing what was right. President Shuga is so humble. So, I'd like your team to be in charge of all future consulting contracts with us. Could you please tell manager Nakatani that too? When I put Kiji down, Nakatani, dressed as a demon, was standing behind me. Ah, Iwata. What was that just now? It's... As you heard. President Shuga said that I would be in charge from now on. You're... trying to flirt with my client. Then Nakatani confronted me in a deep voice. Don't say such rude things. I was just doing my best for the client. If the manager had acted that way, Venus Cosmetics could have suffered a major blow. Nakatani's face, tired from drying his clothes, turned purple with anger. You bastard, you're making fun of me. Listen up. I'll never acknowledge you. From that day on, his attitude towards me went from simple harassment to a clear attempt to take everything away from me. A year had passed since that first meeting, and the manager's persistent harassment continued, but I had fought back against it all by continuing to produce results at work. And in my personal life, I had experienced the greatest happiness of my life. I had started dating the woman I loved for about a year. She understood my work from the bottom of my heart and was my biggest supporter at all times. After a while, we met each other's parents and decided to get married in November. So, 3 months before the wedding, I decided to send out wedding invitations to my acquaintances, despite my bad intentions. Among them were my colleagues from work and the manager. To be honest, I was unsure whether to invite the manager or not, but I thought it would be too blatant to invite only my colleagues. More than anything, as someone who works at the same company, I wanted to improve my relationship with the manager. So I went to his desk, took a breath, and called out to him. Manager, can I talk to you for a moment? Oh, what's wrong? Iwata. I'm busy. Unlike you. The manager didn't take his eyes off the screen at all, and didn't try to hide his displeasure. I'm sorry to bother you with work, but I'm getting married. The ceremony will be held in November. If it's okay with you, manager, please attend. Quote. When I handed him the invitation, Nakatani turned to me for the first time. But his eyes weren't smiling at all. Getting married? You're the one who said that. Don't make me laugh. A brat who's also a criminal is getting married like a grown man. What kind of woman is she? The manager didn't say a word of congratulations. It was the reaction I expected, but I almost sighed. Still, I continued speaking calmly. I've been dating her for a while now. I'd like to introduce her to you someday. Phew. Well, whatever. More importantly, will the client for the wedding be coming? Yes. We've also invited some of our business partners who have been very helpful to us. The moment he heard those words, Nakatani's eyes lit up. The section chief isn't interested in my celebration. He's only interested in whether there's a business opportunity there. Huh. Business partners, huh? Well, we have a relationship, so I guess I can at least show up. Thank you, HMPH, but there's none, Iwata. Nakatani leaned back deeply in his chair and continued, looking down at me. I'm busy, so I might suddenly get some important work. Of course, if it's for a client, I'd put my subordinate's wedding on the back burner. Please forgive me if that happens. He said that with an eerie smile. I could only nod, feeling the unpleasant atmosphere. Of course. Well then, I'll be leaving. I quickly left the place. After that, I went around handing out invitations to my colleagues in the same department. Most of them accepted them with smiles and said, "Congratulations. I'll definitely come," quote, but there were some who didn't. They had come to dislike me for the first time since I ordered Director Nakatani to do so. Chief among them was Kojima, Nakatani's favorite. "Kojima-san, please come if you like. This is the invitation to my wedding." "Oh, well, I'll take it. I don't know if he'll go yet though." Kojima took the invitation from me and glanced at the director. His eyes were clearly reading his boss's expression. The director had asked me to attend earlier. Is that so? Well, I guess I can attend too. Kojima said this with a grin. Nakatani watched the scene with satisfaction from his desk. At that moment, a dark mist of anxiety rose in my chest. Nakatani's suggestive words. Kojima's unnatural behavior. Something was wrong. But at that time, I had no idea that his statue king was connected to a plan far more outrageous than I could have imagined. The days passed and the town waited for the wedding day in November. The cloudless autumn sky seemed to bless our corner hands. Looking out the window, Dai-san, it was so beautiful. Ah, this is the best wedding day. Thank goodness. After finishing the preparations, the gentle light poured in as the room and I and the police spent a peaceful time. Just as we were about to leave for the listing. Riri. My smartphone rang suddenly. The words, "Director Nakatani," appeared on the screen. I nodded to Tsukasa and answered the phone from a short distance away. Yes, it's Iwata. Director, is something wrong? Oh, Iwata. Today was your wedding, wasn't it? Huh, really? Did something happen? I braced myself, thinking he was going to cancel on the day and harass me. But the director's evil deeds were far beyond my expectations. Actually, everyone in our department except you is going on a company trip now. So, I'm sorry, but I can't go to today's wedding. Why yes. What was he saying? For a moment, I couldn't understand what he was saying. A company trip? I'm sorry. I never heard of such a thing. Nakatani couldn't hold back his laughter as I asked him again, feeling bewildered. Of course it was. I set it up for the employees at the last minute. For the employees? I felt sorry for my colleagues who had to go to the wedding of an incompetent like you. There's not a single person in my department who would willingly go to your wedding. The sticky symbolism that echoed from the other side remained in my ears into the night. Are you serious? Huh. Of course. Starting today, everyone in my department will be going on a hot spring trip to Ueda, so no one will be able to attend your wedding. That's too bad. Well then, if that's the case, have a lonely wedding in an empty venue. Understood. Just make it a nice wedding. And I stood there, clutching the smartphone that had been handed to me. The symbol of the section chief echoed repeatedly in the room, and I was simultaneously overcome by a surge of anger that felt like the ground was flowing backwards, and the despair of having to make my beloved Justice next to me sad. What's wrong, Dai-san? Your face is blank. Who was it from? Justice noticed the change in my expression and looked into my face with concern. I didn't want her to hear such an unpleasant story. But I couldn't help but tell her. Justice, please calm down and listen. That was from the company's section chief, Nakatani. Everyone in the department is getting married today. Huh? Why did you get some urgent work? No, they're going on a hot spring trip to Ueda. On the same day as our wedding, the smile on Tsukasa's face disappeared at my words, and her big eyes began to moisten in an instant. She was the one who was looking forward to a beautiful sunny day in November more than anyone else, and I had made her sad in this way. Before I could feel my anger towards Nakatani, my heart felt like it was going to burst with guilt towards Justice. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I should have kept the wedding a secret from that guy from the beginning. When I blamed myself, Tsukasa shook her head with her eyes still closed. No, it's not Oki's fault. The one who's at fault is the person who did such a terrible thing. It's okay. I'm fine. Even if the number of people attending decreases a little, it doesn't change the fact that our wedding will be wonderful. Seeing her acting so rudely made my chest tighten. I can't just sit there crying like this. For Tsukasa's sake and for my own pride, I can't let it end like this. I decided to take a chance on one possibility. The only person who could turn this situation around, the person who would become my boss and the head of the company. I took out my smartphone and opened the phone book with trembling fingers. Fukuda Toyosuke. That was the name of the president of J-Next Consulting, whom I had negotiated with a year ago. And the name of the person who would become my father-in-law from today onwards. That's right. In fact, she was the daughter of President Tsukasa, and we met through an introduction from none other than the president himself. And after dating, we got married today. Judicial works for a company that has nothing to do with J-Next Consulting. That's why the employees don't know that she's the president, Mana. Oh, it's Dai. It's finally the day of the wedding. I'm on my way to the wedding venue now. After the ringtone rang several times, the usual loud voice rang out from the other end of the phone. President, no, Dad, I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy. Actually, I have something urgent to tell you. The president seemed to sense something from the seriousness of my voice. What's wrong? Did something happen? Your voice is shaking. I told him everything that happened on the phone with Nakatani this morning. The president listened quietly without interrupting until I was able to speak. Silence fell heavily on Kujiki. Eventually, the president said quietly, but in a low voice that sounded like it was coming from the depths of hell. I see. That bastard Nakatani. Was he really that rotten? By the way, I don't think he ever told me about the company trip. I'm sorry. If only I had been more responsible. I made Shiho sad at our wedding. Because of my personal problems. You idiot. Suddenly, Saturn roared like a bolt of lightning on the other end of the line. What did you just say? Don't mess with me, it's a personal problem. The company's department manager is trying to ruin my subordinate's wedding with the whole organization. This is my company's problem. And more than anything. The president paused for a moment, then continued. I wouldn't mind seeing him in my eyes. My only daughter. He tried to trample on the Hano hair squad. And now you're my son-in-law. Do you think I can forgive this? I couldn't stop the tears from welling up in my eyes at those words. Thank you, Dad. That's great. Fine. As your father, I'll buy you 100 times more for the fight you started. As usual, so bold. But now, his angry voice shakes my heart. Listen, Dai, don't think about unnecessary things right now. Just focus on death and hold your ceremony with your head held high. Today, you are the world's best werewolf. Yes. Good. See you later at the ceremony hall. My son. The phone ended with those powerful words. I raised my face and wiped away my tears. There was no more hesitation. It was the moment when a powerful counterattack rose from the darkness of despair. After hearing those powerful words from President Fukuda, I made up my mind. I won't let the department head's unparalleled harassment cloud this important day. The court and I headed to the venue as planned. The court was safely covered, and the ceremony finally began. The doors opened, and the court and I made our way to the main table to the warm applause of the guests. The venue was nearly full with relatives and friends from school, overflowing with congratulatory smiles. Except for one thing, there was a table set up in one corner of the venue for company colleagues. There was a sign for Gen X Consulting there, but there was no one sitting there. I could tell that the attendees at the venue had noticed the strange sight and were starting to whisper. Hey, there's no one at the groom's company table. Oh, really? What's going on? This is the worst possible outcome. It seems that the boss's threats had an effect that was even more effective than I had imagined. Even my close colleagues from the same year didn't attend the wedding. I could feel Tsukasa's face growing anxious and scared even from sitting next to her. I gently held her hand and nodded to show that everything was fine, but inside I felt like I was going to burst with humiliation. That's when it happened. The door to the Fatigue Garden venue swung open again. Oh, your werewolf friends have just arrived. The wedding host announced the arrival of a surprise guest that I hadn't even been told about. Standing at the entrance were my client, Venus Cosmetics' CEO Shuga no Kita, and his subordinates. Huh, President Shuga, why? As I stood there frozen in surprise, President Shuga came over to our table with a big smile on his face. Congratulations on your marriage, Iwata-kun. Actually, President Fukuda told me about your impromptu wedding. But that's a bit too superficial. Why didn't you invite me? I can't take up President Shuga's time. What are you talking about? It's just between you and me. Besides, when our employees heard it was your celebration, they absolutely wanted to come along. Thank you. But I never imagined you'd come despite your busy schedules. Haha. You're the adult who saved our company from bankruptcy. Why wouldn't you come and join your happy party? Saying that, President Shuga glanced at the company table, which was full of empty seats, and grinned. However, we had heard from the people at the wedding venue that they couldn't prepare seats for us who had come without notice, but thankfully, it seems there was a cancellation. I guess it's okay for us to come. How about you guys too? Yes, President. Of course we'll join. Since that's the case, I'm sorry to be so sudden, but we'll take the empty seats. President Shuga and his subordinates sat down one after another at the empty J-Nex consulting table, as if by prearrangement. In an instant, the once splendid empty table was transformed into a glamorous corner filled with beastmen from the industry's top companies. The atmosphere in the venue changed completely. Hey, isn't that President Shuga of Venus Cosmetics? Why is it the groom's company's fault? He has an amazing network of connections. I left behind, but gradually I began to understand the situation and my eyes welled up with tears. President Shuga had sensed something was wrong with the ceremony and had given me the best support by filling the empty seats. Seeing them take their seats, tears welled up in my eyes and those of the judge. They were tears of gratitude for the warmth of people. The day after the wedding, I was spending a peaceful day off, making phone calls to thank everyone who had come to the wedding. Then a phone call came. It was from President Fukuda. Oh, it's Daiki. You must have been really tired yesterday. It was the best wedding ever. Thank you so much, Dad, for yesterday. Of course, Dad wouldn't have decided on President Shuga. President Shuga's decision was completely his own. Well, I guess that's just your virtue. As expected of the man who became my son. Thank you. I'm sorry, but can you come to the office right now? Yes, of course, I don't mind dying. We'll see something interesting. The president's unusual tone made me and the jury exchange glances and hurried to the office. The office was quiet because it was Sunday. When we opened the door to the president's office, there was not only the president, but also the head of the accounting department and, for some reason, a scared-looking Kojima. Kojima-san, why weren't you the one who went on a trip here? Iwata-san, that's what President Fukuda said with a stern face instead of Kojima, who was stammering. He really didn't say anything about going on a trip. This guy was the one I woke up this morning and called here. It was a lie after all. Yeah. And when I confronted him, he readily confessed everything. That the whole trip thing was all orchestrated by that bastard Nakatani, even using my name. At that moment, there was a knock on the president's office door, and Nakatani, who knew nothing about it, slowly entered. President, are you calling for me? Even Kojima, who asked me what I wanted on a Sunday, is here. Hey, what's going on? President Fukuda calmly said to Nakatani, who had a look of shock on his face. Yonaka, isn't that a long time? Is the emergency response from the client over? Huh? Oh, no. How did the president know about that? The president was thrown into the air by the manager's panic reaction. Don't mess with me. You're using my name and doing whatever you want. The president stood up and slammed his desk down. I personally confirmed it with the people in the department yesterday. Apparently, they sent a mass email to the entire department saying that they were on call at home because they had received an urgent call from a client. And they even used my name. Isn't that all a blatant lie you made up? Hey, those guys are being unnecessary. The manager is being mean. But he still seemed to be trying to play it safe. And no, President. I'm very sorry. It's true that I misunderstood and sent the email to the employees, but that was an accident. Huh? Are you still talking like that? But I won't be easily convinced by such a cover-up. The president said that and grinned at me. The real membrane of hell that the manager didn't know about was about to rise. The manager, who still couldn't understand the situation, seemed to have finally noticed the presence of death standing quietly next to me. By the way, President, who is that woman over there? Why is a perpetrator of a crime at such an important meeting? I answered that inappropriate question, not the president. She is the woman who became my wife yesterday. I'm not a perpetrator. I'm a victim whose life's worth of decisions was hurt by your outrageous evil deeds. The section chief sneered at my angry words. You brought your wife to your company just to complain about something like your wedding being cancelled? What a sleazy bastard. Hey, ma'am. You have no eye for men. It's a shame she married such an incompetent man. Quote. The section chief's expression was one of scorn. Tsukasa, who had been silent until then, spoke up in a surprised voice. No, I think I married the best man in the world. My husband is the best partner for me. He's not like a wicked person like you. Quote. President Fukuda, who had set up this counteroffensive, called out to the section chief in a low voice. Hey, Nakatani, do you really know who you're talking to right now? What's wrong with you, President? I'm asking if you don't know who Fukuda is standing over there. Quote. And when the president spoke the full name of the justice, the section chief's expression turned sour. That's right. The one who's there is someone I wouldn't mind seeing in my eyes. The only Mana girl. Huh? Oh, and it goes without saying that the man you've been calling incompetent and a jerk all this time, Iwata Daiki, has been my son-in-law since yesterday. The president slowly stood up and walked over to Nakatani. He tried to ruin the once-in-a-lifetime celebration of my precious daughter and son by dragging the company into it. I had no idea. I had no idea that the young lady and Iwata were in such a relationship. This must have been some kind of mistake. Nakatani, who learned the true identity of the justice, turned pale and collapsed on the spot, making excuses without any hesitation. It was a mistake. Don't mess with me. In the first place, you probably had no intention of celebrating a milestone in your subordinate's life. I can't let a man like that be in charge of anyone any longer. Oh, there was no malice. Trust me, boss. Shut up, the president's yell echoed through the president's office. I feel ashamed of myself for not realizing the true nature of a man like you and leaving you in charge of the department manager all this time. To be precise, I have always appreciated your dedication to your work, no matter what. Please. Please forgive me. I apologize to Iwata too. My feelings were completely unaffected as I stood in front of the department manager, who was lying on the floor in a panic. Department manager, I wanted to build a good relationship with you, but I have no intention of forgiving you for bringing grief to the judiciary. Then, Nakatani, completely paralyzed, collapsed on the spot. President Fukuda looked down at Nakatani, who was lying on the floor, trembling as if he had fallen into a trap, with icy eyes. Now, I will hand down the punishment to Nakata. Yes. Normally, you should be fired from the department for abusing your position and committing such evil deeds. But I have feelings too. Huh? The department manager looked up, finding hope in the president's words. Then the president laughed awkwardly and made a shocking announcement. He would promote Kojima to a department manager position effective next month. He would order an indefinite transfer to a small sales office on a remote island further out from Hokkaido, above the ranks of ordinary employees. A remote island, for an ordinary employee? In a sense, it was a hellish war that was even more brutal than being fired. This man, whose pride was unusually high, was now reduced to the same status as his subordinates, who he had looked down on until then, and was completely forced to live a timid life on the edge of the wall, relegated to a mere sense. That's all for you, President. I've worked hard for this company for so many years. Yes, that's why I let him off the hook. If you don't like it, then you should leave this company. That made Nakatani sit down on the spot as if his soul had left his body. The president then turned to Kojima. Even though Kojima was under pressure from his superiors, he was complicit in the misconduct, so he ordered him to serve a 3-month sentence and undergo training under Iwata. Do you have any objections? No, I don't. I'll do anything. Kojima bowed his head desperately, with Nakatani's masochism in between. Iwata, is that okay with you too? Yes. I'll have Mr. Kojima learn how to be a consultant from scratch under me. Yes, I'll do my best. Kojima nodded with a pale face. And so the verdict was made. After that, the section chief stood up unsteadily like a ghost and glared at me with resentful eyes. He said, "It's your fault. If it weren't for you, my life would be what I deserved." Quote. Section Chief Nakatani. No, Mr. Nakatani. Nakatani was so cold and helpless that he tried to leave the president's office. But just before that, Nakatani said to me in a small voice, "It's not over yet. I'm just one of the pieces." Quote. It wasn't until some time after Nakatani had set off on his journey to the far north that I realized the meaning of his words. 6 months later, just as he had declared, Nakatani lost everything and left for a sales office in the far north. Rumor has it that he suffered from unfamiliar physical labor and interpersonal relationships at the local office, and became completely mentally ill. Kojima is working hard on my team. Wasn't Nakatani working under him for 6 months? It must have been hard to train him from scratch. Our department regained a healthy atmosphere under the new manager, and I was enjoying a peaceful and happy newlywed life with the judiciary. The events of that recent wedding now felt like a distant nightmare. But the peace was beginning to be quietly but surely eroded. Problems began to occur simultaneously on multiple projects I was in charge of. In one project, negotiations with a client that had been progressing smoothly were suddenly and unilaterally terminated at the last minute on orders from above. In another project, important presentation materials that I had spent several days creating suddenly disappeared from the server. That can't be. I definitely uploaded them to the server last night. I'm sorry, Kawada-san, I checked too, but they're nowhere to be found. The backup also failed due to an error for some reason, and at first I thought it was just a coincidence. But could such coincidences really happen so frequently around me? One night, as I was about to leave the office after finishing overtime, I heard Saturn leaking out from the president's office. That's why I should have opposed it from the beginning. It was time to entrust a project of that scale to such a young figure. This voice was Oguro Heisuke. He was in a faction opposing President Fukuda, and was the number 2 in the car who always openly criticized the president's methods. Oguro, you must be well aware of Iwata's track record. You can't say that he is responsible for this incident. Results are everything, President. So many problems have occurred one after another in the project he was in charge of. This is nothing but a failure of his management skills. He should be removed from the project and given the appropriate punishment. I gasped. Oguro was trying to make me lose my gratitude. Why? I've hardly had any contact with him up until now. At that moment, a certain word from Nori suddenly came back to me. It was the day Nakatani left the president's office. In a small voice that only I could hear, he muttered, "I'm just one of the pawns." At the time, I didn't pay any attention to it, thinking it was just a distant memory of a loser. But now I understand. There was someone behind Nakatani who was giving orders. There's no way a man as arrogant as Nakatani could carry out such a bold plan as using the president's name on his own. The strange sabotage of my project. Daikoku attacking me out of necessity. And the mysterious words left by Nakatani. Every piece pointed to a sinister possibility. My real enemy wasn't Nakatani. There was a vast evil lurking in the deeper, darker parts of this company. I was only just beginning to realize its existence. Nakatani's rampage and the interference with the current project. Daikoku must have been pulling the strings behind the scenes. The goal was to lose me, who was at the center of President Fukuda's faction, and tarnish the president's authority. But there was no evidence to back it up. If I make a careless move, I'll be in the hands of that man who holds immense power as the executive director. I judged that it would be dangerous to handle this alone, so I immediately consulted with President Fukuda. So, I can assume that all of this trouble is sabotaged by Oguro. I guess so. I already had a hunch that he doesn't like your marriage to Shiga. Huh, he also has a son who's about the same age as you. I think he thought of her as my daughter someday. But she didn't pay any attention to him at all. Is that so? His gratitude also included such a personal grudge. But as you said, we have no evidence right now. He's prepared. He won't do anything to get caught. Then I guess I'll just have to let him get the better of me. No, the president laughed fearlessly and took a sip of his cigar. The only way to hunt a tiger is to enter the tiger's den. I have a dangerous job that only you can do. That night, I knocked on the door of the operations office as the president had told me to. I had made an appointment to meet with Daikoku to take responsibility for the series of project failures and to discuss my career. Of course, it was all a facade. I had hidden the high-performance IC recorder the president had given me in my breast pocket. Urged by the heavy voice, I stepped into the operations office. "Oh, you're Iwata. What brings you to my office?" "Thank you for your time. I'll speak directly to the person in charge. You want to get rid of me from this company, don't you?" Daikoku raised his eyebrows in slight surprise at my words, but then his face showed a spiritual understanding of everything. "Huh, have you finally realized? You're a young man who doesn't know his place. That's right. You're just a nuisance to me." "Why? What did I do to you?" "Not you yourself. Your very existence." Sitting in the elegant chair of President Fukuda's daughter, and representing the president's faction as a scribe, your presence gets in the way of my plans. Those words confirmed that my guess was correct. You were the one who gave the order to Director Nakatani, weren't you? That man was an easy pawn to catch, wagging his tail like a dog when you dangled the bait of his jealousy towards you. Oguro admitted everything without showing any remorse. His overwhelming confidence must have come from the certainty that I would never find any evidence. Well, let's leave the old stories aside for now. It seems you understand your position now. I expect you to make a wise decision. Submit your application to me, not the president, by the end of this week. If you do, I will guarantee your future. But if you defy me..." Oguro slowly stood up and placed his hand on my shoulder. "You know what will happen to your career as a consultant." It was a final ultimatum from an absolute authority. As I left the operations room, my body was covered in smudges. A sense of hopelessness. Will I ever have a chance? Leaving the executive director's office, I immediately headed to the president's office and played the conversation I had with Oguro that I had recorded on my IC recorder for President Fukuda. I never thought he would openly express his rebellion against me like this. Has he finally revealed his true colors? Yes. However, Oguro has shown me that he has the power to influence the entire industry and is concerned about the future of your consulting career. This recording alone may not be enough to completely make him lose clients. A man like Oguro would have anticipated the recording and would likely deny it if push came to shove. If we were to resort to a decisive blow, fighting back would be suicidal. As we were pondering, there was a knock on the president's office door. The person who entered was an unexpected person. "Kojima, what's wrong?" "Iwata-san, President, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something I absolutely have to tell you." His usual fearlessness was gone, and there was a clear light of determination in his eyes. I deleted Mr. Iwata's project documents from the server on the orders of Director Nakatani, but at that moment, his parents stopped him. Kojima said this and handed over a USB memory stick with trembling hands. He had copied the data before erasing it onto this stick and secretly stored it. He didn't know what Hirota or the director would do if they found out, so he kept quiet for a long time, but when he saw Mr. Iwata in trouble, he couldn't do any more cowardly things. This was irrefutable evidence of the Daikoku faction's misconduct. Although it was his boss's order, Kojima's crime was serious, but in the very end, he regained his pride as a consultant, and indeed as a human being. Well done, Kojima. I definitely witnessed your courage. At the president's words, Kojima's tears welled up in his eyes and he bowed deeply. And then it happened. The phone in the president's office rang loudly. When the president picked up Atsuki, his face changed to one of surprise. "President Shuga, what's wrong? At this late hour?" Yes." To his surprise, the person on the other end of the line was none other than President Shuga of Venus Cosmetics. The president put the tree down, looked at me and Kojima alternately, and then grinned. It seems the final piece has come together. What the president said was shocking. It seems that President Shuga had been suspicious of J-Next Consulting's internal affairs ever since he saw me at my wedding, and had been conducting his own investigation. He had also obtained unbelievable information from an executive at another company in the same industry who was involved in the incident. A few years ago, Asano had illegally received a huge amount of consulting fees from the other company in a major bankruptcy case that J-Next had handled. This was not just a power struggle within the company. It was evidence of a serious criminal act that could never be forgiven, not only as a consultant but as a member of society, as he had betrayed his client and cheated on me. President Shuga even obtained a copy of the secret ledger that recorded the flow of the money. An extraordinary board meeting will be held tomorrow. There, I will make everything public with my IC recorder. The data that Kojima courageously protected. And the conclusive evidence that President Shuga has brought to me. I was not alone. My colleagues, clients, and father-in-law, who had seen my sincere work, had been fighting for me behind my back. Let's do it, President. Let's tear away his curse with our own hands. The darkness of despair had completely cleared. The flames of our final all-out battle were about to be lit. The next day, the boardroom at J-Next Consulting was filled with an unusual tension. President Fukuda had summoned all the executives, saying that there was an urgent matter that would determine the future of the company. Of course, Oguro, who knew nothing about it, was also sitting in his seat with an uneasy attitude. At the beginning of the meeting, President Fukuda quietly stood up and placed a self-proclaimed document on the table. Here is the self-proclaimed document from Iwata. I could see Oguro's mouth slightly twist at those words. He must have been convinced of his victory. That was a wise decision. His retirement would be the best choice to put an end to our confusion. Ah, that's right. But before that, there's something I want all the executives to hear. As the president said this, a clear voice began to play from the speakers in the conference room. It was Daikoku's own voice that I had recorded in the executive director's office last night. It was clear that I was the one who gave the instructions to manager Nakatani. Your presence will interfere with my plans. The moment the voice played, the conference room fell silent as if a tomb had been struck, and the executives' gazes all pierced Daikoku. This is a fabrication. It's a trap set up by President Fukuda to bring me down. Daikoku began to make lame excuses, trying to sound old. However, the president calmly played his next card. Oh, a fabrication. How about this? The project data that Kojima had risked his life to protect before it was deleted was displayed on the screen. It contained a definitive log showing that there had been unauthorized access from Daikoku's PC. You yourself sabotaged Iwata's project. This is also a fabrication. But this is no evidence. Daikoku continued to press the issue, and President Fukuda presented him with his final and strongest trump card. I see. You seem to really want to see the real evidence. President Shuga, please. As the president said this, the door to the conference room opened, and standing there was none other than President Sugano Futoshi of Venus Cosmetics. Oguro Tsutomu? No, Oguro-suke. Why have you kept quiet until now about the fact that you illegally received 50 million yen from Future Brain, a company that went bankrupt a few years ago? What is it, President Shuga? Don't play dumb. This is the evidence. What President Shuga slammed onto the table was a copy of a secret ledger that anonymously recorded the flow of illegal money. Safe, irrefutable evidence. The moment Oguro saw it, his blood ran down his face and he collapsed onto his chair. He could no longer even think of words to defend himself. Oguro-hei, I will criminally charge you with criminal mischief and fraud. Of course, you will be fired from the company. Your career as a consultant is completely over at this very moment. The president's spiritual warring states echoed through the conference room. After that, Oguro was quietly taken away by the police officers who rushed to the scene. That figure was not thanks to the powerful people of yesterday. He was just a pitiful criminal. A few years later, the root of corruption was eliminated from the company. Kojima was recognized for his courageous actions in this case, and the disciplinary action was lifted. Now, as my right-hand man, he devotes himself to his work more diligently than anyone else. And President Fukuda officially promoted me to department manager. From now on, you will be the one leading this company. I'm counting on you, new department manager. Yes, President. No, Dad. The president and I shook hands firmly. Next to me, Shiho and President Shuga watched over us with warm smiles. It was a nightmarish few months that began with harassment from an unparalleled boss, but I was never alone. I was able to overcome any difficulty because I had a loving wife, a trustworthy father-in-law, and colleagues and clients who believed in my work. Various difficulties will continue to await me, but I fear nothing anymore. Together with these wonderful colleagues, I will continue to run with all my might for the bright future of the company and society. Thank you for watching. How did you like this story? If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up or comment saying, "Kasuka is the best," as it will encourage me. Also, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon at the bottom of the screen right now. You will be the first to enjoy newly posted videos. There are many other great videos, so please watch another one if you like.